This week you join me in the New Forest, which is an absolutely lovely area of the UK. Look, there's just like horses roaming around. If you haven't been, highly recommend. But one thing the New Forest is not good for is van life. But luckily for me, I am dog sitting, well, pet sitting, house sitting this week. This is Bonnie. Say hi, Bonnie. Looking after Bonnie here and 3 cats in a lush little cottage in the New Forest, which is absolutely lovely. But it's MOT season. My van recently failed its MOT. I've got to get some expensive repairs done, so I thought I'd just do this little video whilst I'm out on a walk to explain some differences between buying an older van and converting an older van to like live in or travel in compared to a newer van. Come on, buddy. And what some of the differences are, and basically just sort of say my opinion, because I've posted on my social media that I needed some repairs done and everyone seems to be commenting just scrap the van. And to me that is absolutely wild, that as soon as you get something wrong with a vehicle you should just scrap it and get rid of it and not even consider repairing it. Bonnie, are we lost? Oh gosh, you chose the worst place for me to throw this ball. We're stuck in the forest. Let's go. You have to just catch it. What was I saying? So yeah, I've had 2 vans now. Both of the ones that I've had, I bought older vehicles and I preferred it that way because there was less upfront costs. But anyway, I'm going to explain some of the differences, and yeah, you can see some of the new... Oh, I just fell in the hole. And you can also see some of the New Forest whilst I'm talking. In the next few weeks I am going to do a nice little cinematic video of the New Forest and show you how nice it is around here. But I'm waiting for a new lens to arrive, so until then you're getting chatty iPhone videos. Hopefully you enjoy that too. So obviously the main difference is cost, and more importantly the upfront costs, because if you buy an older vehicle it's going to be less upfront. You're going to pay less than 10,000 most likely for an older vehicle. I bought mine for 3,000 and I brought my caddy for like 1,600 I believe. So it's pretty cheap upfront cost. It's very easy to save that if you're working, even if you're working like 9 to 5 or minimum wage job, you should be able to save a couple thousand in order to buy the van. Converting it is another story. I mean, because I've chosen an older vehicle, I chose to convert it a lot cheaper and I didn't want to invest like £10,000 in it. I think I converted mine for like 4,000. So if something were to happen to the van, I mean obviously it's a lot of money, but it's not like I've just crashed £30,000 worth of a vehicle and a house. So yeah. But then there are some positives if you're going to go down the route of a newer vehicle and the cost of that. A lot of the times you can get like financing. Sorry if I'm looking at the floor, by the way, I don't want to fall over. There's a lot of like financing options. Personally, I don't like the idea of being in credit and having to pay each month towards a vehicle, but if that's something that you prefer and you know you've got a stable income coming in, then that could work for you. I'm wishing I brought my tripod now because my arm's aching. Oh, I found a fence to rest it on. So yeah, obviously the cost if you're going to buy a newer vehicle, it's a bigger investment up front. But then you do have the other benefits that an older vehicle wouldn't have. So yeah, it's just something to bear in mind. But if you want to go down the financing option, you're probably more likely to get financing for a newer vehicle. There's also a lot of like warranties and things like that on newer vehicles as well. So that's also something that's a bonus for newer vehicles. Now obviously with older vehicles there is going to be more repairs and more probably unexpected repairs and maintenance costs for like things that break down. Although saying that, newer vehicles also can break down. Like just because you're buying a newer vehicle doesn't mean it's not going to break down at all, and you're still going to have to pay to like service it, do the MOT. You're still going to need like new tyres every couple of years and things like that. So just by buying a newer vehicle doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have less repair costs. It will probably be cheaper, but yeah. spotted a deer over here. So before I continue on with my points, let me tell you a little bit about my van and what I need to get repaired and what prompted me to make this video. Ignore this bit of wood, it's currently holding my phone. So my van failed the MOT yesterday and it needs some welding done. It's quite a serious patch, but there's actually also another patch that if I'm getting some welding done, I may as well get them both done at the same time. I basically made a TikTok video where I said, this is damage, I'm going to put in some photos and videos to show you how bad it is. And I've been quoted about 700-800 quid to get it welded and fixed, and I thought that was a pretty reasonable price, and everyone was commenting saying that's so expensive, scrap the van, buy a newer van, why have you got such an old van? And I just completely disagree with the idea that you need a newer vehicle and that you shouldn't put money in an older vehicle to keep it running and maintain it. Like, obviously, yeah, if you have a crash, that's just Bonnie running around in the grass. Like, yeah, obviously if you have a crash or a big engine problem that's going to cost like 5 grand to repair, then yeah, maybe you could consider scrapping it. But for anything less than maybe like 1,000 or 2,000, I personally would consider putting that money into it, because when you think about it, I've built my house in the back, and I would probably, like, if you get a hole in the wall in your house, you wouldn't just tear down the whole house, you would try and keep it going and like rebuild it to what it needs to be. And I also think that I would much rather pay like 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 upfront and then regularly each year have to do a repair of say £1,000. I would much rather do that every year just to keep the van running for like say 5 years, to like, I'm saving money on my rent, so I may as well be putting the money into the van. And like all of these things, like it just doesn't make sense to just think I'm going to pay 20 grand for a new van and that's it. Right, I'm basically just waffling now, but on to my next point. So the value of a vehicle will considerably go down the newer it is at a quicker rate. So say you bought a vehicle that's, I don't know, 2020, in the first few years that you own it, the value of that van is going to go down, or car, whatever vehicle it is, the value of that is going to go down so much more compared to if I bought a 2010 van and maintained that well enough for a few years. I could probably resell it for the exact same amount that I bought it, and with the conversion on top, if you do it well enough, you could probably even make a profit. You're very precariously balanced in a tree. So for example, I bought my Volkswagen Caddy, which was a 2006 Caddy. I bought it for 1,600. I did the conversion for about 1,000, 1,500. Obviously I spent some money on repairs and things like that, but I then sold the vehicle for, I think it was like 5,000 in the end. So I actually made a profit, or at least broke even with all of the repairs and things that I would have paid for that van. And I owned the vehicle for about 3 years, so it wasn't just a quick flip. I owned it for 3 years, did a few repairs, built it out, added that value, and then sold it and made a profit. A leaf just hit me in the face. Obviously that does also depend on the market value and if the prices go up and down, because that can be a big factor as well. Now obviously there are some negatives to older vehicles. A lot of them don't have air conditioning, cruise control, up-to-date like Bluetooth connection for the radio and things like that. Bonnie. Some of them might not even have electric windows, but that is the sacrifice you make. Another win for newer vehicles is probably their fuel efficiency. It will be cheaper with fuel and things like that. However, newer vehicles are probably more expensive to insure, and yeah, if you make a scratch or anything, you're going to feel really bad because it's a new vehicle, whereas with an older vehicle, it's already got a few scratches, so another one isn't going to do any harm. She always drops the ball when I'm in the middle of like a hedge. Where am I going to throw it? Obviously I don't buy an older vehicle with the hope that it's going to last me like 10 to 15 years. So I guess the main thing you have to figure out is how much you want to spend up front and how long you want the vehicle to last. If I'm buying an older vehicle, I'm happy to pay the reoccurring costs for maintenance, and to just keep it running for like 5 years would probably be the maximum that I'd expect from it. If I could go longer with minimal repairs, then obviously that would be ideal, but I don't expect it to last forever. But I want to know what you think. Do you think it's worth it to buy a newer vehicle and have less repairs, or are you happy with older vehicles? And if you've got a van or just any vehicle, leave a comment with how old it is and how much estimated you think you've had to spend on repairs since you've had it. I think I've had the big van now for two years, and I've maybe spent like 2,000 on repairs, so probably averages out like 1,000 a year. I think personally for me that's the way that I will always do it, unless I somehow end up with loads of money and want to buy a newer vehicle. But for me, whilst I'm just going down the budget route, it works pretty well, and I just make sure to put aside a little bit for unexpected repairs, and it's usually fine. So yeah, leave a comment and make sure you're subscribed, and I'll be back with some van life travel vlogs and videos once the welding has been fixed and the MOT passes, and once I get back on the road. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.